There are two basic problems I would point to that the United States is facing now. The first is the government ever since the Reagan administration, with a narrow window during the Clinton administration, the government has spent substantially more than it's taken in taxes. Many people in Congress are deeply concerned about these deficits, and I share that concern. We have to do something to get revenues more in line with government expenditures. The second problem that I think is a substantial one facing the United States is the growth of inequality. Now, Americans do not really have a huge problem with inequalities in wealth as long as there are equalities of opportunities. The problem is, I think, the degree of inequality of wealth has reached a stage where the opportunity is not there for as many Americans as possible.
And that's the other argument that the opponents to the Buffett rule and what you're advocating make, is this idea that you're getting away with something with lower rates of taxation on investment income, capital gains, is a red herring, that's already been taxed with corporate tax, and you're actually then supplementing that taxation with your capital gains tax. You're not getting away with anything. How does that argument fare?
I don't think that argument is very valid either. It is true that, really understanding where taxes fall is a very complicated one. But let's remember that I also, the bulk of my income comes from investments, dividends and capital gains on investments. But, I earn a substantial amount of money in unrealized capital gains as well. That is, I only pay capital gains when I sell an asset. So I am avoiding tax on the much larger amount of money that I'm not actually selling. It's simply going up in value over time. So, a fuller accounting of what kind of taxes people pay is a very complex proposition. But I start from a very basic principle, and I go back to what I said earlier. I pay substantially lower taxes than a hard-working middle-class American, and I don't think that's fair.
How do you think we got to a stage where that is seen as reasonable, where the taxation policies of Ronald Reagan are deemed to be akin to class warfare?
I mean, I go back to my point. I think inequality is a problem. Now, inequality has arisen not just in the United States, but many other countries over the last 30 years for a variety of reasons. My point is simply the government is making this problem worse. And if you agree that inequality is not a good thing, why should we have a tax system that actually exacerbates inequality? I've observed this happen over a 30-year period of time. It happened slowly at first, and then more dramatically accelerated under President Bush in the early 2000s. Yes, it is undoubtedly due in large part to the enormous power that the wealthy have and the greater influence they have over decisions made by Congress. And that's part of my point, which is inequality I think inequality is a problem in and of itself. But Americans accept inequality as long as they believe that everybody's got a fair shot at becoming richer. When the wealthy become too powerful, they do what it takes to protect their own interests, and they make it much harder for people to gather new wealth themselves.